All right, so let's dive into this pretty remarkable bit of news out of New Zealand. They pulled off something pretty incredible over Labor Weekend this year. 0 road deaths.
Yeah, that's right.
0.
It really is striking when you think about it, especially considering Labor Weekend is, notorious for increased travel, tons of people on the roads and often some pretty challenging weather conditions too.
Exactly. It's not like, it was a ghost town out there on the roads this year.
Right.
We're talking about, the typical end of October rush, people heading out for the long weekend, all
Yep,
that.
exactly. And that's kind of what makes this achievement so significant, It really shatters this idea that, well, a certain number of road deaths, they're just kind of inevitable, right?
Yeah.
Especially during those busy holiday periods, you just kind of expect it. But this year it's like they flipped the script.
It really makes you think, doesn't it?
It does.
If they can achieve 0 deaths on a weekend like that, I mean, why should we accept anything less on regular days, right?
Yeah.
It's almost like why can't we do that all the time kind of thing?
Exactly. That's the big takeaway here. 0 road deaths shouldn't be some kind of holiday miracle.
Right.
It should just be the expectation every single day.
We've been looking at an article from One News New Zealand about this, and it really highlights this stark contrast, between this year's outcome and the road tolls from the previous labor weekends.
Yeah.
Just to give you an idea, 2023 there were 6 deaths, 5 in 2022, 6 again in 2021, and even 8 back in 2020.
Wow. Yeah, and going back even further, the previous lowest death toll was a single fatality, just one, all the way back in 2013. So this year's 0. I mean, it's in a league of its own.
Yeah. It really is. It's almost like they cracked the code to road safety, at least for that weekend.
Yeah, it really does make you wonder, what was it?
Right.
What were those contributing factors? Was it just people, being super careful because it was a holiday? Or were there, other elements at play that we need to kind of unpack here?
Yeah, and the article even mentioned some pretty severe weather that hit parts of the country during Labor Weekend. They even had a major slip that closed State Highway 6 through the Buller Gorge. So, it's not like it was all smooth sailing out there.
Yeah, right. So even with those challenges, they still managed to achieve 0 deaths, which suggests that, it really seems like proactive measures and just a collective shift towards that idea of responsible driving, it probably played a really significant role.
And the article quotes Police Superintendent Steve Greeley, who emphasized the increased police presence over the weekend, just more cops out there and their focus on harm reduction, which I thought was an interesting way to put it.
Right.
Harm reduction.
Yeah, that's a really key point. That focus on prevention rather than reaction is I think that's what we're getting at here.
Right.
It suggests a shift from just, responding to accidents after they've already happened to really actively trying to prevent them in the first place.
And when they talk about harm reduction in this context, it's about, minimizing the potential for accidents and injuries through, these proactive measures.
Right.
So things like, targeted patrols, having more cops out there in specific areas where they think there are going to be problems, breathalyzer checkpoints, and, public awareness campaigns aimed at just promoting responsible driving behaviors.
Exactly. And it raises this question, right? Like, if these measures were so effective during a holiday weekend, a notoriously busy travel period, like what if we took that same level of focus and that same kind of proactive effort and applied it year round, right? Could we replicate this success and make 0 road deaths just, the norm rather than this rare exception?
Yeah, it's a really powerful thought, isn't it? Like, if it's achievable on a holiday weekend, like Labor Weekend, surely it's achievable on, a regular Tuesday afternoon in February.
Right.
But what would it take, right? What were the specific ingredients, in this recipe for success? What really made this happen?
Yeah. What can we learn from this?
That's the big question.
That's the big question, yeah. Yeah, that's the million-dollar question, isn't it? What were those specific actions that contributed to this, a remarkable outcome? And more importantly, can those be replicated throughout the year? Was it all just about the increased police presence? Or did something else, help make this happen?
Well, the article doesn't really dive into like super granular detail about, every single initiative that was out there.
Mm-hmm.
But it does suggest that they took a pretty multifaceted approach. So it wasn't just about like, cops on every corner.
Right.
Alongside that visible police presence, there were also probably some public awareness campaigns leading up to the weekend, just reminding people to, hey, be careful out there, drive safe, all that stuff.
Yeah, right, right. And those campaigns can be surprisingly effective sometimes,
Yeah.
especially when they're really targeted and well timed. Do you remember that ad campaign a few years back, the one that used humor to get the message across about the dangers of distracted driving?
Oh, yeah, the one with the talking dog in the passenger seat.
Yeah, that's the
I
one.
remember that. That was pretty funny. But it also, like, actually, it made you think about your own habits behind the wheel.
Exactly, right. It's all about finding those creative ways to cut through all the noise and make people actually like stop and think about what they're doing. And it seems like maybe those efforts paid off over Labor Weekend.
Yeah. It makes you wonder, what if we had that kind of, like, really targeted messaging all year round? Not just, when holidays roll around. Could we maintain that sort of, like, heightened awareness of road safety?
It's definitely something to think about. And beyond the public awareness campaigns, there's also the whole issue of road conditions. The article mentions that even though there was that severe weather in some parts of the country, overall road conditions were generally good. And that in itself can make a huge difference.
So maybe this points to the need for, continuous investment in road maintenance and, infrastructure improvements, things like that.
Absolutely. Things like well-maintained roads, clear signage, and effective traffic management systems, all of that stuff plays a role in creating a safer environment for everyone.
And we can't forget about individual responsibility,
Right.
right? Even with, like, top-notch infrastructure and all these fancy public awareness campaigns, ultimately it comes down to, the choices that we make behind the wheel.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, that sense of responsibility that we saw over Labor Weekend,
Mhm.
it seemed like people were really taking it seriously. And that's something we need to cultivate year round. It's about being more aware of our surroundings, anticipating potential hazards, and just, generally avoiding risky behavior.
Yeah, it sounds pretty simple when you put it like that.
Right.
But those everyday choices, they can really make a difference. Things like, putting your phone away, making sure everyone's buckled up, not driving when you're tired, not driving under the influence. I mean, these are the things that prevent accidents from happening in the first place.
And it's not just about, protecting ourselves either, right?
Right.
It's about protecting everyone else on the road too. Pedestrians, cyclists, other drivers, passengers, everyone.
So how do we shift from, like, thinking about road safety as this, like, holiday specific concern to making it an everyday priority? I mean, what can we actually learn from this Labor Weekend success story and actually apply it to in our daily lives?
Well, I think, I think it starts with recognizing that zero road deaths isn't just some, lofty ideal out there. It's a goal that we can actually achieve. We've seen it happen now. And that should inspire us to demand better, both from ourselves and from the folks who are responsible for road safety in our communities.
Right. So we need to hold our policymakers accountable, make sure they're investing in infrastructure, make sure they're promoting responsible driving habits, all that.
Right.
But we also need to, hold ourselves accountable. We need to make sure that we're making smart choices every time we get behind the wheel.
It's about creating a culture of safety, a culture where zero road deaths isn't, some miraculous exception, but it's just what we expect. It's the norm. And that's a culture we can all contribute to, one drive at a time.
Yeah, it really is inspiring to think that it is possible, zero road death weekend. Like that's huge.
And it's not just about the numbers, right?
No, no, of course not.
It's about the families, the friends, the people who get to keep their loved ones in their lives because of the conscious choices people made on the road. It's pretty powerful.
Absolutely. Every single one of those zero deaths represents, life saved, a family spared from that kind of tragedy. And that's something, something worth celebrating and striving for every day.
Yeah, it really makes you think about the bigger picture, doesn't it?
It does. It really does. So where do we go from here? How do we take the lessons from this amazing Labor Weekend and figure out how to apply them to make our roads safer all year round? That's the challenge.
Well, I think it starts with awareness
Awareness of.
of the problem itself, right? And just recognizing that it's not inevitable. I mean,
Sure.
we've kind of been, conditioned to think that a certain level of road fatalities is just unavoidable.
Yeah.
It's just part of life. But this Labor Weekend it proves that that's not true.
So challenging that assumption, that's the first step.
Exactly. Once we acknowledge that zero road death is actually, it is possible, then we can start demanding it, right? Both from ourselves and from our leaders. We can say, "Hey, this is what we want. This is what we expect."
So individual responsibility combined with, with some collective action, I guess.
Exactly. We got to keep having these conversations about safe driving habits. We got to advocate for better infrastructure. And we got to support policies that put road safety, front and center, that make it a real priority.
It sounds like it's going to take a pretty sustained effort from a lot of people to make this happen.
It will, but I think this Labor Weekend has shown us what's possible when we do come together and make safety a priority. It's a powerful reminder that even those goals that seem impossible, well, they can actually be achieved if we all work together.
Yeah, it's about that collective effort. It's
Yeah.
about, everybody kind of pulling in the same direction.
Exactly.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, we want to leave you, the listener, with a final thought. What would it take to make every day on the roads as safe as this past Labor Weekend? And what role can you play in making that vision a reality?
Maybe it's something as simple as, putting your phone away when you're driving or speaking up when you see someone doing something risky behind the wheel. Or maybe it's a bigger thing, like advocating for safer streets in your community, or supporting those candidates who really make road safety, a central part of their platform.
Yeah, it's about finding those little things, those big things, and everything in between, right? The things that we can all do to contribute to this bigger goal
Yeah.
of making our roads safer.
Exactly. Whatever it is, whatever form it takes, just remember this. Zero road deaths, it's not just a dream. It's a possibility. And we can all play a part in making it a reality.
Thanks for joining us for this deep dive into road safety. Let's all do our part to make every journey a safe one.